to go get some put in the sparkles. Be able to get up to the island. Going over the bridge.
Okay, it's 5:01. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll review the agenda real quick. We will have public input on unagenda items. Anybody wishing to do so, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Consent agenda with the items as listed A, B, and C. Fire chief's report. Unfinished business, we have the details on the chief's job description, which also includes the evaluation criteria. New business. Item A, we're going to push forward to our next meeting. That person's not here to receive our little gift. And item B, we will go ahead with on the facility restoration projects. The chief's remarks, attorney's report. Mr. Salzman's not here this evening, so any questions we may have, we'll relay to him for future meetings, and then we'll have our remarks and adjournment. Any other changes to the agenda?
None.
No? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public input on non-agenda items. We have a few public personnel here today. Nothing? Nobody? All right. Great. Consent agenda. We have meeting minutes, board retreat minutes, and the check approvals 48023 through 48076 for a total of $172,669.78. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was quick. Fire chief's report.
All right, commissioners, thank you. Good evening to the public. Glad to see some public here with us tonight. So this month, in the beginning of the report, you'll see that I had mentioned some good news. We are getting numbers on the tax rebate impacts. So those numbers are moving along. Last time we talked at our board retreat, we had talked about a maximum exposure of somewhere around 2.5. We believe that the impact will be somewhat less than that. We did find out that the county is still, the property appraiser is still processing more packets to go to the tax collector. So there'll be numbers to continue until June 1st, I believe, is when they'll finalize all those numbers for the tax rebates. So this month, we also had our COPCN renewed. We were able to work with the county, Lee County EMS and Division of Public Safety, and make some adjustments to our COPCN. That allows us some flexibility in how we manage our emergency medical incidents. So that is going to help us as we move through the next few years of our budget. Also, you'll see that we've provided a picture of our new rescues, which I'm excited to say will be coming pretty soon. It's been a long process, over 2 years, but had a chance to visit the factory, do an inspection on top, underneath, inside, everywhere I could get to, and they seem to be built very well. So I believe these units are going to serve the community well. So for administration, in the packet that we have tonight under new business, we'll be talking about procurement, and that is involving getting our stations put back together. I want to thank Trevor for his hard work and facilities and getting all the paperwork together and wrangling up the vendors and making sure that we're meeting all the requirements, not only for our internal processes, but now FEMA and working with the state as well, making sure that everything is squared away. Also in the area of administration, I just want to take a minute and thank Jane, even though it's not in the report. Being involved with all the work with FEMA and the state is all additional workload to what our normal day-to-day was, and how she manages everything and our normal daily load, along with all the compliance and reports and everything else that's happening with FEMA and the state. Just thank you for everything you're doing. So.
Thank you.
Also, Chief Kraus. Chief Kraus has been tasked with taking one of our existing systems that we've been using for our medical supplies and some other items. Our crews have been asking for a while to try and streamline our processes, and that involves, so when they come into work each day, they're having to look at 3 or 4 different software systems to kind of get all their information together for what their day looks like. Chief Kraus has been working on kind of pulling everything, inventory, supplies, vehicle checks, and everything into the program that we already have. And in that process, he's also uncovered quite a bit of savings in the things that we order, specifically uniforms. He's finding 15-20% savings on the same exact product, but through our medical supplier boundary. So it's been a good exercise. It's hopefully going to make things better for the crews, but it's also helping the district save money at the same time. So thank you, Chief Kraus, for his work. So in life safety, we are glad to have Ben back. Ben took a leave to help get his house and his family's houses back together. So we're glad to have him back to work, and it comes right at a time when we're starting to see, we're seeing the increases in permits, and we're starting to see some development orders and things like that. So, thanks to Jen and her crew, and getting questions answered quickly, getting inspections done as quick as we can. Those guys are all working very hard. Under operations, you'll see that I've got a few charts in there, and they're focused on our incident response times. Back in February, our incident response times were running about 7 minutes. While they're down a little bit, we know they're above where they were when we had the 3 fire stations. We're starting to see some data, enough data now to know that that 7-minute mark is going to be approximately our response times that we're going to be working with until we get a station closer to the north end of the island. You'll notice in there, so for our emergency responses for this month last year versus April of 23, our call volume is down about 60%. So of that 60% of those calls, we're seeing about 40% of those calls are being run out of zone into either Bonita or Iona, McGregor. So we had a meeting this morning with EMS, very fruitful meeting, and we're coming up with some partnership type setups where we can work with the staffing and the units we have, work with EMS, and make sure that everything is still covered. So very productive meeting this morning, and we'll be following that up with discussions with our DVPs and working on our staffing to get us through the next couple of years.
Can I ask, before the storm, what percentage of the calls were going out of district?
We were still running out of district quite a bit. As you know, Station 32 is pretty close to our border, but we're definitely running out of, I don't know an exact percentage, but I know we're running out of district much more often. And the biggest reason for that, Commissioner, is that Iona McGregor lost their Station 72 over on McGregor Boulevard by Summerlin, and that housed an EMS unit. Okay, so we're finding ourselves running over into that area, mostly with the ambulances, with the rescue trucks, but our engine is also getting pulled into that zone a little more than normal to backfill as well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Iona McGregor is supposed to have their Station 72 open fairly soon, but on a modified, they're doing a temporary station, so they're going to be able to house the fire truck. They're not going to be able to house the ambulance for quite a while. We had one of those opportunities last month that doesn't come along very often because it's very labor intensive and logistics, but we were able to get quite a few of our people over to Bonita Springs for a countywide live fire training exercise. And it's always good for the folks to get into those burn rooms and feel a little bit of heat and real smoke, and versus simulating pulling the hose line, simulating throwing the ladders. It provides a little bit more realism. So thank you to Chief Armiger and all the operations folks for participating in that. you know, when we had our board retreat, one of the things that I had proposed was considering our ladder truck. And is it the right vehicle? And it just seems like the gods are giving me a sign, because since then, we've had, you know, 2 workers, one off a roof, one off a scaffolding. We obviously had the fire at the 5-story, being on the roof. It was a 6th floor fire the other day, you know, and had 2 ladder trucks up and working. So I will say that I'm trying to listen to the signs I'm being given and reconsidering that position. So, but nonetheless, I do want to say that that first call we had where we took the folks off, the gentleman off the roof, we utilized Iona McGregor and their portion of the countywide technical rescue team to help us, and everything went well. But it did identify an opportunity to do some training, which our folks did after that event, which is what we want them to do. And it proved fruitful, because that next call that came with the worker on the scaffolding, you know, we were able to identify it, look at it, and get it taken care of. So great job to the crews. And then finally, Dr. Pereira, our medical director, has been in district doing some in-services with our folks. And she came to us and did some really creative things to try and take something that might be a typical refresher and present it to the crews in a way that it kind of made it more interactive and more fun. But she was in the district and she was doing cardiac type emergencies with our folks. So I'd like to recognize some of our folks who had anniversaries during this period. Captain Cody Chilson with 16 years of service. Assistant Chief Armiger has 8 years with the district. Firefighter Marlon Marin, 3 years. Joshua Dieppe has 3 years, and firefighter Fernando Minito also has 3 years. And then the last thing in my report is I'm sad to say that driver engineer Lane Tall, he has decided to resign from the district. He's going to be joining a neighboring district. So Lane was an up-and-comer, and Lane was instrumental in helping us design some of our vehicles, our apparatus. And, you know, sorry to see him go, but he's doing what's right for him and his family, and want to thank him for his service to the district. So that is all I have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Questions, anybody on the Chish report?
No, thank you.
No, very good.
Very
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
All right, brings us to unfinished business, the finalizing of details for the fire chief job description, and again, also including the evaluation criteria. So I'm assuming everybody's had some time to review the red lines and see where our thoughts kind of landed on paper. Anybody volunteer to start the conversation?
I have to find it first.
So we're talking about right now
The job description.
Yeah, the change.
job description.
Frankly, I thought the additions that we made, changes that we recommended at the retreat, fit right in and were appropriate for our, some of this is newly learned, you know, from Ian.
Right.
Issues, and some of them were just areas that we probably needed to revisit. So I thought they fit in very well, and I was feeling like, well, you know, this is looking pretty solid now. It's just my thoughts.
Well, have we decided about the bachelor's versus master's?
Well, that'll be part of tonight's decision when we get to that point. We
Do you
can
want me to hit
discuss
on,
that
do
now.
you want me to hit on some of the narrative, some of
Certainly,
the
yeah.
changes
Yeah,
real
if you'd-
quick?
if you'd like to review, Scott.
Okay, all right. So based on Commissioner, you got it up?
Yeah.
You found it? Okay. All right, so on the first page, the first items in red are just verbiage as far as, you know, identifying chief and then using chief throughout. In section A, in your discussions, you had talked about including some things that were kind of already mentioned in here. So by adding implement and administer to strategic plan, it wasn't just developing a strategic plan. You guys had asked that there be ongoing evaluation and review, and that was how I approached it with that verbiage. And that's the reason for those changes on the first page. On the second page, D12 was a request to add disaster preparation and planning specifically. That was not in there. So that is a new addition. As well as E10, review and coordinate grants and funding opportunities. So those were requests that you guys had given in the workshop. Under education, based on your discussions, the education, the master's is struck out and bachelor's is added under required. And then down below, the current job description calls for Fire Officer 1 only. And I included some supporting documentation in there to explain Florida's Fire Officer 1 through 4 program. Fire Officer 3 is an administrative officer level, Fire Officer 4 being your CEO or fire chief. So for that reason, Fire Officer 3 is the change that I entered in there. It is also a level that we request for our battalion chiefs and higher as well. Okay. As far as NIMS ICS 300 and 400, ICS 300 is a fairly standard requirement in administrative chief officer positions. It's intermediate incident command, so as incidents grow in size, they go from intermediate to advanced, and 300 is intermediate, 400 is advanced. So I added those as well. On the next page, page 5, under preferred education, that's where I picked up the master's degree from a regionally accredited university. Basically just took it from the required and put it under preferred, as you had requested. You had some conversation about a timeline for that. So if you wanted it to be required in some time frame, there was some discussion of a different time frame. I plugged that in for your discussion.
Yeah. Are we
Okay.
ready to discuss that?
Yeah, let's hit that topic because I know that's a hot one for all of us. So Larry, if you'd like to start.
Sure. I don't see the reason to, if we're going to prefer the master's degree, I see no reason to add to be completed within 36 months, because if it's preferred, it's never required. So I would just delete the to be completed within 36 months. And I think we either require it or we don't. And if we don't require it, then it's preferred. I would like it to be just master's degree preferred.
Preferred.
I would rather our chief go to classes that specifically benefit him on the job and the district, as opposed to getting a master's in administration or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Whoever we choose, he or her, rather than going online, going to school, or going to actual school, we need our CEO to be focused on the job at hand, which is getting us out of this mess.
Yeah, exactly.
And I agree that a master's is nice. I have one, you have one, Jackie has, many of us do. But I want to tell you the names of some people, some billionaires, who don't even have a bachelor's.
Don't include me on that.
Mike
Billionaire, right?
Zuckerberg, I thought he graduated Harvard. He did not. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, Richard Branson, Michael Dell, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, Henry Ford, Travis Kalanick, Uber. I don't even know what Dropbox is, but he doesn't. And John McKay, Whole Foods Market. I mean, yeah, education's good, but at this time, I think master's preferred.
Yeah, and I think if we include the 36 months, okay, now he's under the gun, and like I said, I'm all for education. I was in it for 50 years, but the point is, I think right now we need, if we're hiring him now with a bachelor's, then he's going to start working day one for us, not to take classes. So I think the classes that you take, I think, former chiefs would go to classes in other areas and gain valuable knowledge. They weren't classes to get a master's. That's That's my take.
Check.
Could it be put into an employment contract if getting it was something that helped to retain someone who is interested in advancement, and when you get it, it could result in some increased salary or something like that? I mean, that could be an employment contract,
I would think so.
right?
Possibly, sure.
So, well, you know, and the only other thought I had is preferred and encouraged. I mean, maybe, I don't know if it's, preferred is preferred, but if you encourage it as well.
Not a bad thought.
Jim?
I agree, I don't want the chief to be distracted,
Yeah.
really, with having to focus on meeting an outside certification that may or may not really contribute in a significant way to his performance and ability to help manage the district. Typically, when someone has a lot of experience and they've made their way to a position where they're in a position where they can be a fire chief. The difference between having a bachelor's and a master's degree, whether that's going to make them a better candidate or a better chief or not, would be hard to pull that apart, I think. So I would say it's preferred, but not required. Yeah.
And that might be something they want to do, maybe not right off the bat, but,
Right.
you know, a year or two from now when things have settled down and things are better under control, and then maybe there's an opportunity there for them to advance their education and earn, you know, additional salary or something on the completion of it.
That's a good idea.
The only question I had, Chief, on the topic, and it came to mind a couple of days ago, is do we have any of our admin chief levels job requirements that include a master's currently?
We do not.
Or just the fire
bachelor's.
chief's position?
Yeah.
Good point.
I don't want
Yeah.
a more qualified admin chief, and suddenly our fire chief is
Well, there could be
being paid a little more, and he's not as qualified on paper. But I would agree with everybody's comments. I would desire and prefer a master's degree, but would certainly consider a strong candidate with a bachelor's. Anything further on that one? No? Guess we move along?
Just to be clear, direction is to strike the 36 months.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It's too specific.
Thank
And too restrictive.
Okay.
in my opinion.
On your, also in the board retreat, we talked more of focusing on incident management and natural disasters. National Fire Academy, NFA 308 is a National Fire Academy program that it's similar to 300-400, but it's command and control of specifically natural man-made disasters. So I included that for your, and some supporting documentation for your consideration. Perfect.
Is that the fire?
Yes.
National.
Yeah, NFA. Yep. And then,
Fire out.
And I think that's right up
I
what
like
what
that.
Commissioner Wood was referring to, is there are educational opportunities that would be exceptionally helpful
yes.
to a chief executive in a fire department, and very job specific.
Okay. And then the last one under the preferred area for education is the Fire Officer 4, which is the highest level the state officer, or the state offers, and it is targeted towards the head of the agency.
Perfect.
Right?
Good job.
I would agree with that.
Awesome. Any other topics within the job description that we'd like to discuss at this point?
Not really. The rest of
No.
it seemed pretty.
All right, I think we'll go through the appraisal just to get it hashed out, and then we'll approve the changes as discussed
Right.
at the end. All right. So, on to the chief's appraisal. Chief, if you can just kind of review what changes were made there for us that reflect also in the job description.
Yes, sir. So as I went through the appraisals, made modifications to those to kind of match the changes in the job description. You'll see two different forms in there. The first form we're going through is kind of the form that would be used by us in administration to gather up all of your comments and feedback when you're having that public review. On category 3 on page 2, reviews a strategic plan annually and provides a report to the board. That is keeping with the not only creating the strategic plan but also operating it. And the same thing in your comments were the district succession plan and reports changes to the Board of Commissioners on that as well. And that is it for that form.
Can we talk about the, one thing under the first section, comments on performance in any categories is encouraged. Specific comments are required for any category which receives a rating 1.1 to 1.9 or 5. I thought we'd taken out the requirement for 5. I mean, I understand.
I do have memory of the conversation, but I don't require what that outcome was.
The issue was that all I have to do is give a 4.9 and I don't have
Right.
to say anything. And that's what happened in the past. And so I think that's just, that's.
So for
spurious.
specific comments will only be required for
For,
subpar performance?
yes, for an unsatisfactory, and that I think needs to be there.
Right.
Is, you know, you have to explain yourself, but if I give a 5 rating, I mean, I'm gonna probably say something anyway, but I'm required to do that. And what's the requirement say? Oh, he did a very good job. It's enough. Well, what's the point of that?
What's
You
your
know?
point there?
I mean, that says nothing. So I think a 5 kind of tells you that that's an outstanding, it says significantly exceeds expectations. So that's, if we leave that in, that's what I'm going to say. When I give a 5, I'm going to say, he significantly exceeded expectations. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Does anybody know what the thought process was when that was put in?
Yeah.
Was that put in under any of
That
our?
was under Larry's
Yeah, there
initial.
used to be, the scoring system was different, and it was not valid and not valuable at all. And so we decided so that we were trying to get people to say something rather than just give them a 1, a low or a 2. It was, we felt that they needed more categories. Because if it was 1, 2, or 3, the person never got a 3 because, so, anyway, it was a political thing and based on the makeup of the board.
Okay.
You could, Ron, you could.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
How would you, well, without mentioning names, how would you put it?
Okay, I just wondered if there was a specific reason or rationale to it.
I mean, ultimately, it's our decision on the overall score, so it's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
our
the scoring,
guideline on what we want to do with.
the scoring system's fine with me, and I don't know if you gotta say something for a 5. I mean,
I'm
you're gonna
fine.
say it anyway.
Right, you're going to say something.
Yeah, so say, well, you have to do that. No, I don't have to do anything. I mean, if I don't want to do it,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Well, then my score doesn't count.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so would we all be in favor of striking the or 5 off that initial page?
I would.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think you're
All
gonna,
right.
you're gonna say something no matter what you rate them, I think.
Yeah, I would hope.
so
I would
anyway.
hope.
Yeah, it's another discussion.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, anything else before we close this one out?
No?
Do we have a motion to adopt the fire chief job description and evaluation with changes as discussed?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Discussion? Yeah, passes 5-0. Thank you. Back to the agenda.
Did we just accept both of those?
We did, yes.
Just making sure.
New business, we have item B for the facility restoration projects, and I'll toss it back to the chief on that one, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. If you turn past the blue page and go to the second page, the executive summary, we have several projects in the works. These 5 projects that you see before you, and 2 of them are replacement of the elevator at headquarters and replacement of the elevator at Station 32. These 2 projects, you'll see that our proposed vendor is the low price vendor, but also the one that comes, the highest recommendation. We reached out to this vendor and asked them, so you see the project amount, it includes modifications that need to be done to our electrical, and they're not major, but it's enough that it has to be managed. So we enacted all the vendors to give us a package price. So packaged within that amount is modifications for HVAC or air conditioning. Mechanical rooms have to be partially air conditioned now by newer codes versus the way they were when the buildings were built. So there'll be some air conditioning modifications. There'll be some modifications to our fire alarm systems as well as our electrical components involved in putting in new elevators. This is a complete replacement for both facilities, as was recommended by all the different vendors who looked at the condition of both buildings. Okay. Exterior work at headquarters, that includes, if you've been to headquarters, you've seen that we still have a corner of our wall that's out. That'll have to be formed and poured in. And then there's extensive work. You're doing the soffit, the fascia, and siding and tightening up the rest of the parts and pieces on the exterior of the building. Separate from that is the roof at headquarters. That's our project number 4 in this package. We're replacing the roof. It's a galvanized metal roof on there now. We're replacing it with a upgraded metal roof. It'll be aluminum to better deal with the salt environment. And that vendor is JR and Company, reputable vendor, and they were also the low price. The last one is the roof at Station 32. You'll see in the note of my executive summary that even though Crowther is not the low bid was actually the vendor who put the roof on about 3 years ago, Jane, 4 years ago? Yeah. And while the material held up, it repositioned itself on the roof. The securing and the fastening of the material didn't hold up. And so with that being said, we had that vendor out to work on the roof, and we were able to secure a bid from them, but I'm just not comfortable reusing them. So I'd like your approval tonight to use Crowther, which is the next higher bid, and very reputable company. So those are the 5 projects we have before you. Supporting documentation, I'm sorry it was 100 pages, but I wanted to provide it all to you in case you had any questions.
All right, discussion. Jackie?
I'm not a roofing person, but I guess we're learning, aren't we?
Right.
You're comfortable with both of the companies and with what they're going to do, and
I am.
what is the expected lifespan for those roofs?
So the flat roof at 32 is a 20-year product, with 2 years on the labor, which is fairly typical. In lessons learned from doing past projects, being that you can put a product on a roof, but there's also different fastening patterns for that same product to make it rated for 150 or 170 mile an hour. So we will watch the roofing company closely, and I've seen Crowther do other roofs. I know that they will secure that roof properly. On the roof at headquarters, the product that's being used there is a standing seam snap lock. All the fasteners are concealed underneath those joints, versus the 5V metal that you see with all the rubber washer nails or screws. So it's a very durable roof. All the trim products are spec'd to be made out of the same grade material. And it's of a nice heavy grade, so they've spec'd all the right materials, and again, we'll keep an eye on them, but I'm confident they'll do a good job installing it. Now that aluminum roof that's probably a 25 to 30 year roof, as long as it's installed properly.
Good.
Jim?
Chief, what's your timeline on this? We do have rainy season approaching. I was just curious if you thought you were going to be able to get some of these projects buttoned up to help keep the buildings dry.
Both of the buildings, and yes, so each of these jobs, headquarters, for example, the tear off and drying of that so that it's watertight will probably happen in 1 to 2 days based on the size of the roof and the complexity of it. And then it'll probably take 3 days to a week to install the metal, as long as they have all their materials set. The flat roof at 32, that is probably something that I would guess they would probably be able to take off and put back on in 2 to 3 days.
Do you have a timeline when they might start?
I'm not sure exactly what their timelines are, but as far as availability of materials, I know that, we're using standard materials and availability shouldn't be a problem. So I don't, because we haven't given them the go-ahead yet.
Right. So they're not
But
gonna-
I would imagine both companies are probably 3 weeks to a month out on starting.
Yeah, okay. Sounds about right.
So what you're hearing too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wood?
General Elevator, we had a different company, and we actually paid them off early. They were not performing, and we've already made up the money that we paid by using General Elevator.
Yeah.
Really good company, and the cost to replace, we were told it was going to be $1.5 million for our 4 elevators, and their cost is about $400,000.
Okay.
So it's just really, so far, we've been really pleased.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we have a flat roof, and it's, even though it's a 30-year roof, the insurance company, after 20 years, will not insure it.
Yes.
And so we were going to put some kind of a coating on it and get another 5 years. And they said, the insurance company will not cover it.
Yeah.
Of course, they may not cover this one, even though they were supposed to. But the point is, don't pay extra for a longer
Right.
period of time because the insurance won't cover it.
Yep.
So, but Crowther is one of the ones that's bidding on our roof too. A couple of years,
Yeah.
same thing. Yeah, they're reputable. That's it.
Commissioner Fleming?
Well, I'm just glad we have bids back. It's hard to get bids.
It is.
Depending on what you're trying to do. I'm glad we're not going with whoever it was that
Yeah.
the roof blew off. I used to work in the station, and the roof was fine, except when it rained.
Just a couple of questions, Chief, on the roof that failed, that was improperly installed. Do we have any measures we can take to put a claim against that contractor for?
Unfortunately, no, because there's a few reasons. You're outside the workmanship time period. It's typically 1 year to 2 years on workmanship. And I'm not sure that the simple answer is no. We're beyond that timeline.
And then with the new elevators, any features that would protect those in future events that were floods compared to what we currently had and lost?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things we're doing when we put the HVAC units in is they'll all be put in on wall mounts, and that's kind of what is increasing the cost. We're figuring where are we going to put that external unit, like at headquarters in 32, but they'll basically all be installed at or above about 9 feet. We're trying to make sure we get over what that water line was. So if you look at, they'll basically be at second floor on both buildings. In addition, we already had some code compliance issues with our elevator at headquarters, and we had budgeted some restoration money to do that code compliance. That was going to become effective, I think, December 23, December this year or next year. But anyway, it was changes to the code that were coming that were going to cause us to have to do some modifications over there. Of course, the new elevator will have all the latest codes accounted for. And then the other item I mentioned was the air conditioning of the mechanical rooms.
I think that's all I have. Any further discussion?
So we need a motion.
We need a motion.
Who wants to read that?
Jim, would you like to?
Sure, I'll be glad to. I make a motion to purchase capital assets, including roofs, elevators, and building restoration projects as listed in the summary prepared by administration totaling $701,837, with additional authorization for the fire chief to expend up to an additional 5% per vendor project if needed for unforeseen expenses to complete the projects.
Second.
Discussion, any further?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, passes 5-0. Chief, how much of that do we see the potential for recovery from FEMA dollars?
I'm fairly confident that it's going to all fall under FEMA or
Okay.
Or insurance.
Or insurance.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
through the different sources available.
You can keep us posted on that, just we have our eye on it.
All right, brings us to the fire chief's remarks.
Not too much more, but I do want to highlight our crews and our partnering relationships with all of our neighboring districts Saturday. The fire that we received was in essence on the 6th floor on the roof of a 5-story building. Our crews all arrived, including DVP Gordon, who's sitting out there in the audience. First unit on scene and got water to the standpipe system, and firefighters were able to get up to the roof quickly and put a good stop on the fire. That building is under repair, and it presented some challenges to us. That system started failing about 15 minutes into the operation. Fortunately, ladder trucks were up and provided a backup water supply to the firefighters on the roof. We were also fortunate building construction helped hold the fire to the roof area, but went to 3 alarms on it. We had agencies, Estero Fire, Iona McGregor, Bonita Springs, South Trail, City of Fort Myers. We had several units from Lee County EMS. Lee Tran was there with a bus to help our folks stay cool and rehabilitate. Everybody did a great job. Thank everybody, all the agencies who showed up and helped us get it done. So,
Great.
okay.
Terrific.
Has there been an official cause there?
Not official yet. The state fire marshal is leading the investigation on it, and they have not finished out their report yet, so it remains under investigation.
All right, no attorney's report. We're down to commissioner remarks.
Commissioner
Lezak, would you like to begin?
No, I'll just start by saying, please extend our thank yous to all the other entities that responded, to our team for the quick response, for the way it was handled with PR, the way our PR went out. I know we have some folks working on that. It was really nice to see because I was seeing the updates coming through, and so the folks in the office did a good job, especially on a Saturday.
That was all
Yeah.
Fire Official Campbell. She
Yeah,
was
I
all
mean,
over it.
Our
made a
PR
difference.
social media coordinator.
It really made a difference because all of a sudden people would start asking questions, and of course, my phone goes crazy. I'm sure you guys went crazy too immediately. And then the questions started getting answered, like almost away. So it just tapped down that chatter that happens on social media when there's no information or disinformation. So that was handled beautifully. Good job on that. It made it easier. That I didn't even have to respond to anybody. I was like, no, go look right there. There's your answer, So great job on that. And, I suspect we're going to see more of this to come. Training may be real life, not needing to go find
Yeah.
places to go train in. I did want to ask if we still are looking for buildings to do training in before they come down, the buildings that are probably still going to come down.
Yeah, so Fire Official Campbell and Chief Arminger work together pretty regularly and
Okay.
look at the demolition permits as they come in, and Chief Arminger is reaching out and finding, sometimes it's hard to find buildings that'll meet the time frame. We can get it done before a lot of people want to get their buildings down and get them rebuilt.
Sure.
But yes, we're actively looking at that all the time.
Okay. As the chamber president, if I can help facilitate that or reach out to ownership or whatever, I'm happy to help with that because I think it's really important
Yes.
for us to do. And I know the community likes to see the folks out there training and using those buildings. At least I think we're just going to see more and more of this as we continue on. So great job on that. And excited to see the new ambulances. So. And I'm glad that you're reconsidering the ladder trucks because I think
They have come in handy.
we may need them. We're like we had talked about too, a lot of the buildings that are going to go up are going to be taller. Even the residential structures. And it's just going to be the way of the future right now with us. So thank you.
Commissioner Nichols.
I wanted to echo many of the things Commissioner Lezak said, that thank you to all of the agencies that responded to give us assistance at that. From what I could see, it was handled exceptionally professionally. I was very proud of our organization and its leadership role in tackling that fire, and I was exceedingly happy that no one was injured. I was impressed that they brought the bus in to keep people cool. It's important in an environment like ours to do that, and that all. My question is was that built into the plan, or is that something someone at the scene, a commander, thought of and said, let's get a bus in here?
So part of the countywide system is when we go to 3 alarms, we automatically get an incident management team. So that brings an incident commander. If you're going to expand out your incident, it brings us another safety officer in addition to what we already had there. And then it brings a division supervisor. So if you're breaking it up into pieces, you have somebody else to help manage one of those pieces. So the bus is something that we use on longer duration events. The bus is something we use if we have, for example, if you remember the long lines we had in the summertime for tickets to different events, and you'd see it on the news that people were passing out. So yes, the bus is a resource that is available, and it's used for different types of events.
Well, I thought it was particularly valuable in this particular
Yes.
fire event.
And Letran is a great partner in that they bend over backwards to to get a bus and a driver to emergency scenes pretty quick.
That was great. And like, again, echoing what Commissioner Lezak said, I think we're going to have a lot of incidents like this over the next 6 months to 18 months as we discover electrical wires that have been contaminated by salt water underground or in structures, and eventually they are going to fail, and depending on how they fail is whether or not you have a fire. So everybody, I would caution everybody, whether it's your home or your condominium association or your condo, pay attention to what's going on. Everything may look great, but you could still have an issue brewing underground or in your facility that could come back and become a problem. So be safe, I guess, and vigilant. Other than that, great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
To echo what you just said, we had talked about a little bit about putting some kind of information out to homeowners about why you need to replace the Romex that went underwater, or why you need to replace the electrical stuff that goes underwater. Is there a way we can maybe partner with the town to get that out in a water bill or something that goes to every single resident? Somehow that, because I think, there's a tendency to want to just, looks okay to me, let's just, fix the outlet boxes and not replace all the wiring and the clips that hold it to the 2x4s and whatnot. And my understanding is those clips start to rust and then they eat through the Romex and then you have issues. So I know that the town would be willing to help with anything we could push out that would touch every single home. It could be a good thing.
Funny how we've all learned all about construction things we never really wanted to know about.
Right? So, thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Wood?
Well, I agree with my colleagues, except on one point. I hope we never get to practice a live fire incident on the island. I know that's wishful thinking, but I hope we never have to do that. But obviously, as you're just pointing out, it's very likely that that's going to happen to us, and I don't know. That threatens people, and it scares everybody. Because you don't know what's underground, you don't know what's in the walls, and so no way to tell. So other than that, of course, I reiterate everything they said about the other groups that came in, but also our firefighters who were on the incident at the beginning and made sure everybody was safe, no one was injured. That's the most important thing. So, and the last thing is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm glad we went with the red trucks and not those lime green or whatever color those were.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Good. Commissioner Fleming?
I concur with everything that's been said to date. I want to add that I express my appreciation to the entire staff, all our team members, and their continuous hard work since the storm hit. I refuse to say its name. As to the fire, I'm always at the pier at noon on Saturday. And I'm very disappointed. That would have been like my fourth first in. You know, but I wasn't. The fire went very well. I'm pleased with how they, and I've been critical in the past. It was a difficult fire. The crews did well. The support systems that were in place, the bus, the rehab, passports, the accountability, who's where, what are they doing. I mean, it was run well. I'm pleased that the district chief, or not district chief, the battalion chief was allowed to continue to run the fire, because that, I don't know we've ever had a 3-alarm fire. Not since I've been here.
I can't think.
And
South End 1, that was probably 5 years ago. The elevator fire. Yeah, not,
Okay,
they're not very
yeah,
common.
I don't think we've ever had a 3-alarm.
But it's important, I mean, Chief Swarth's been to plenty of fires, he could have run the fire, but it's important for the, not junior officers, because the battalion chief isn't junior, but I'm pretty sure that may have been one of the first fires, that big fire. You know, and it gets complicated,
Yeah.
and it's good for them. On a personal note, let me back up. And I'm happy to see that the police or sheriff adheres to the national response concerning fire, in that block the hydrants, block the street, don't let them get close. And they had to move their cars, but they got close. On a personal note, I retired 12 years ago last week, and I moved here 10 years ago last week.
Oh, wow.
And finally, those of us who have any contacts, this is for Anita Saracita, the peer peddler. She had thousands of patches, military, police, fire, everything. If any of you still have contacts from where you're from or the agencies nearby, if you could reach out to them and just send them to you, and then we can get them to them.
You got it.
I believe we're going to try to have her at the next meeting for a presentation.
Oh, that's great. That's all.
That's it? Oh, thank you. It's hard to come up with things. I always wondered how Larry felt at the end of the meeting after the other four have gone and you were stuck at the end.
Yeah.
Again, I mirror everybody else's comments. Great job on the fire. You know, when it is a fire anywhere, it draws a crowd. But when you're in a community like ours that already has a crowd, it was amazing that we were able to keep people at a safe distance and not trying to get too close for their selfies or their Instagram posts. Super happy that no injuries, and that's to the construction workers that were there all the way to the investigators that were, you know, thereafter. You know, those roof fires have always scared me, but I'm not a heights guy. That's why I became a cop. So the ladder's for other people, but it's you know, it's a nice feeling and sense of pride when you see something that Commissioner Fleming shared immediately, and he predicted a late night and all kinds of, you know, stress and worry, and it just seemed to work as planned, and every check was made and it was done on time, and I'm sure our after action with the folks who were on scene reflects the good job they did, but please reflect our appreciation from the board and the community that outstanding job as always. They continue to shine, and we expect nothing less, and we're certainly proud when they get the opportunity to get out there and show their professionalism. Thanks to our folks who came tonight. It's rare that we have visitors in the gallery, so
Thank you.
don't make it a one-time. If you're a community member or you want to come back, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks to the board. Again, great meeting. We'll put together a new agenda for our next one coming up with some topics. And again, thanks to the staff. We appreciate everybody. Congrats to our anniversaries. Yes, sir.
One question. Who was the battalion chief?
So Anna McGregor's battalion chief came in and they were operating it. His name is slipping my mind, but by the time I got there, he had command of the fire. He had an aide in place with him, was tracking the first and second alarm units. And so we had some conversations, and he had asked me to get some eyes up at the scene, and that was right about the time we were losing our standpipe system. And he said, do you want the fire? And I said, are you okay? And he said, yep. And I said, okay, well, keep doing what you're doing.
for you.
So we filled into other roles and, supported him in his operations. And he did a great job on it.
That's good.
We have our
Thank you,
after action Friday, where our department, I'm trying to get our whole department over to Iona Station 75 because they have a big meeting room, and we're gonna go through it comprehensively.
Good.
Great,
So,
great. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Great question. Again, thank you. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the staff. Keep up the good work. We'll see you next time. This meeting is adjourned.